There wasn't 500 people that saw Jesus. There was one person that wrote, 500 people saw Jesus.
Then he appeared to more than 500 brothers at one time, most of whom are still alive, though some have fallen asleep.
Saying, one guy wrote that 500 people saw Jesus, completely misunderstands the historical claim. Paul did not offer a rumor. He issued a public challenge. Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 6 that Jesus appeared to more than 500 eyewitnesses. And then added the key detail modern skeptics ignore. Most of them are still alive. In the ancient world, that was the equivalent of saying, go verify this. These people exist. They can confirm what I am saying. You do not write that to a hostile audience unless you are absolutely certain those eyewitnesses are real. Corinth was full of skeptics, Greeks, pagans, and people who openly mocked Christianity. If Paul were lying, they would have crushed that claim immediately by demanding names, or pointing to a body. Yet no one did. The movement exploded because the claim stood up to scrutiny. Ancient historians accept far less evidence for events nobody questions. One written source reporting a public claim is normal historical practice. Paul's statement is not a lone voice telling a fairy tale. It is a documented appeal to hundreds of living people during the lifetime of the eyewitnesses and the enemies of the movement. And here is what makes the atheist objection collapse even further. Paul was executed for preaching the resurrection. Not for politics. Not for theft. Not for rebellion. For proclaiming that he encountered the risen Christ. Liars do not willingly go to their death protecting a lie. People do not suffer beatings, prison, torture, and execution for something they know they invented. And Paul was in the perfect position to know whether the resurrection was true. He met the apostles, interviewed eyewitnesses, spent time with Peter and James, and built his life on what he knew firsthand. So the idea that one guy wrote that 500 people saw Jesus is not simple skepticism. It is selective disbelief aimed at Christianity alone. If their standard were applied evenly, they would reject every event in ancient history. The resurrection stands on stronger historical footing than anything the skeptic rests their worldview on. Their issue is not evidence. Their issue is refusing the conclusion the evidence points to.